So this week's discussion point is, should the Mandalorian and Grogu be the conclusion of the Mandoverse? This is on the back of some rumour that's going about the internet. It's one of these 50-50 chances that the Mandalorian and Grogu film will be the conclusion of the Mandalorian's story, and there won't be a season 4 for the TV show. Your initial thoughts, Paul? Should it end with a climactic movie? Obviously, we don't know what the plot's going to be as such, and the last series kind of ended on a happily ever after kind of motif.
Dreadful, wasn't it? Dreadful ending. In a way, I'm glad that wasn't the end of it all, because season 3 was patchy at best. I loved The Mandalorian. Season 1 and season 2 I could watch over and over again. Season 3 is a difficult watch. And as for that sort of almost Warner Bros. Ending of the circle,
Looney Tunes ending is Mr. Newbold.
Looney Tunes ending, exactly. Thank you, Mark. It really was quite disappointing, and something that carried on through to the Indiana Jones film as well, the last Indiana Jones film. So yes, I'm glad that we're getting more. I believe I've read that this does replace what they were planning to do for season 4. But also, I'm right in thinking that there's a Filoni film coming up.
Yeah, so obviously we've had the Mandalorian and Grogu, which is coming from Jon Favreau as director, but we've also got a Dave Filoni directed movie to come as well. Which the Filoni movie makes sense to wrap up the Mandoverse, you know, as characters from all the series. Kind of makes me feel that the Mandalorian and Grogu will be a self-contained story almost.
Yeah. I mean, if that is the case, I was personally hoping that this was going to focus on Mando and Grogu and sort of hint at things like Ahsoka and the Skeleton Crew coming into a separate film. If this is the end of it, well, let's hope it goes out all guns blazing. I'd certainly like to see Tem back as Boba Fett, but from the bits and bobs where he's been spoken to, he claims that he's not involved. That could just be a smokescreen, just to sort of like keep things nice and secretive. And if he's not there as Fett, I'd like to see him there, perhaps as Cody, or maybe as Rex. But yeah, it's Mark said there. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. Have you seen all the Mandalorian Bride? What did you think of season 3?
Well,
did you think
season 3 had some really terrible moments in it? Let's not pretend. Otherwise, I've no time for the comedian cameo parts.
No,
Star Wars doesn't need cameos in order to get viewers. I just don't buy into any of that. I really enjoyed episode 7, which they showed live at Celebration. It was
that was the one where Grogu was in IG-12. Is that one?
Yeah,
that was good. That was,
and it was like a mini movie. It was really well done, and it set you up for what you felt like was going to be a fantastic ending to the series, and it just fell back.
Yeah.
And the ending was just a damp squid to me.
It really fell flat, didn't it? It just didn't.
It just felt like we've run out of ideas, and that's it. That's how
I think probably the end of season 2 was so strong.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't even want to surpass that. Maybe they wanted to give Luke his golden moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely need Tem to be there in some form or other. It doesn't have to be Fett. There's so many characters that he could play.
Yeah.
And that would be brilliant to see.
For me, there needs to be a clear idea as to what the movie is, because there's nothing story-wise that makes sense for a continuation. You know, there's nothing sort of left there really that justifies a movie in my head. It kind of feels that the movies have been a little bit of a disaster in terms of getting the support of the fan base, or a universal support of the fan base. They've seen The Mandalorian as a TV series that was quite widely accepted, and said, right, let's make a movie and that'll resolve a lot of issues. And I think that's why they've sort of sandwiched Grogu's name into it as well, because Grogu became some kind of internet meme stroke sellable product when he debuted. So it kind of crossed genres a little bit.
We
It
don't
needs
want a movie for a
it needs a
movie's
clear
sake,
story.
do we? Yeah, we don't want a movie for a movie's sake. We want something that drives the story, pushes the narrative in a different direction, and does something cool with it. I mean, Star Wars has been away from movie theaters by the time this comes out for what, 8 years?
Yeah.
We need it to be strong. That's all we ask. And change the title. That title is rubbish. Give it a proper good title.
I think it's also apparent that the actor doesn't want to be as involved with it anymore, whatever's going on behind the scenes there. So
Yeah.
for me, I'd be quite happy for the Mandalorian Grogu to end the Mandalorian storyline, and for Dave Filoni's film to wrap up the rest of the characters introduced in that Mandoverse, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 Pedro, clearly, he's just a voice now, isn't he?
Yeah.
No, we don't want any of those cameos back. Thank you very much. um, yeah, it really does pull you out of the story when you see people like Jack Black and Lizzo in it, and even Christopher Lloyd. And then there was that really strange episode with Pershing, that didn't do really anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if it had driven the story to a different direction, if it had actually added to it, then great. But that could have been told in a 5-minute scene. It didn't need to be a whole episode.
Yeah.
So let's just hope that whatever they come up with is something of value. And then when we come to the next film, the Filoni film, if it's nothing to do with the Mandoverse, then what could it be? Or do you still think it will be to do with like sorting out the rest of the bits from Boba Fett and Ahsoka?
I think it will. I kind of get that impression it's just going to be the tidy up of the Thrawn storyline.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a shame, because I'd really love to see the original Thrawn trilogy made into something, even if it's something by Pixar. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of, I think, Jabba's court done. It's without further information of what the Mandalorian Grogu has been, it's hard to come to any kind of conclusion as to whether it should be the end, I think. But it does feel like the natural end in terms of storytelling has kind of reached us a little bit, at least, anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I think they kind of run out of ideas by the end of season 2, to be honest.
Yeah. I think there comes an issue when you do episodic television where it's story of the week as to what's the overall arc, and the Mandalorian's kind of lost its way in terms of having an arc.
Yeah. Well, this is what comes, and this has been the criticism that's been leveled at the sequel trilogy, is that because there was no agreed end point, it just seemed to amble everywhere over 3 movies and didn't really round off the Skywalker saga the way that it should have been.
Yeah. You also have the danger as well, if the Mandalorian Grogu film is very successful, it's going to make them want to make more.
Well, there's always that chance, unless they kill them off.
Yeah.
In which case they'll struggle.
Definitely. Jabba's Court's part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap of all the latest Star Wars news, streaming live every Sunday at 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. New York, and it's released as a video on Father Tracks TV every Wednesday at 7 p.m.